All right, I think we'll get started. Just want to welcome everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to another Amplify Oshkosh Ideas Amplified webinar. And today we're featuring Ahmad Shahzad, Client Technology Strategist with IBM. And Ahmad's going to be discussing process autonomy and its impact on business. My name's Rob Clayman. I'm with the Oshkosh Chamber and also serve as staff to Amplify Oshkosh. And we also have a couple of fellow amplifiers on the line, Javad Ahmad to my left from SmartIS and Caitlin McWilliams from SmartIS as well. Thanks for joining us, guys. I think Javad is going to be leading us, kind of moderating this event, and will be leading a Q&A towards the end after the presentation. But really, before we get started, I just wanted to note that Amplify Oshkosh, it is a program of the Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce. It's really a community-driven grassroots initiative to increase awareness of IT in our area, in the Oshkosh area, in our region in Northeast Wisconsin, and to promote IT and digital careers within business, education, public sector, private sector, businesses, kind of the entire gamut. The consortium is comprised mainly of leaders from all sectors that are out there, but kind of specialize in that IT digital focus. We've had a 7-year history with Amplify Oshkosh. Now it's hard to believe it's been 7 years with this consortium, and growing every year. We've engaged with almost 1,000 distinct individuals with our programming and events. And if you have any questions or want to get more involved in Amplify, just feel free to contact me at the Oshkosh Chamber or email me at rob@oshkoshchamber.com. You could also reach out to Javad or Caitlin or any other consortium member you might know for more information. Everybody's willing to help, but we love to have more involvement and engagement from folks. I would also like to take the opportunity quickly to thank our annual sponsors of Amplify, and they really help us accomplish our objectives and the mission of promoting IT. Platinum level is Oshkosh Corporation, SmartIS, and the Oshkosh Area School District. We have gold level sponsorship from Fox Valley Technical College, from Bank First, Stellar Blue Technologies, and Sadoff E-Recycling and Data Destruction, as well as Arctic Wolf Networks. And then finally, we have silver level support from Change Management, Whipley, and Horicon Bank. Also mentioned, we receive support from many other organizations around our region, kind of over the year for special events. Our big event that takes place in the fall, and I think this year's event is going to be on Tuesday, September 21st this year for our annual big event. So maybe mark that on your calendars. We're beginning the planning for that event. With that, I think what I'd like to do is introduce our featured speaker today, Ahmad Shahzad. Ahmad is an accomplished technology executive and industry strategist with extensive experience in driving business transformation through the power of technology, data, and analytics, modernizing cloud and cognitive architecture and capabilities, leading and steering diverse global teams, and developing and managing multi-year programs. During his 2 decades of professional experience, Ahmad has acted as an agent of change and advised organizations at all levels of influence to drive large IT transformation, like the establishment of enterprise-wide analytics and data organization, procurement, supply chain, and engineering and manufacturing technology programs, connecting products in the field through IoT. Ahmad was also recognized as a top 40 IoT influencer in 2017. Congratulations on that. And currently he's working as a client technology executive at IBM, where he has supported clients in manufacturing, CPG, healthcare, retail industries. And prior to this, he worked for Caterpillar as a lead architect, focusing on their data and analytics transformation journey. And also, I know he's coming to us from Chicago today. So welcome to kind of our Oshkosh event as well. And I know you presented at some of our events before up here in Oshkosh, very familiar with us up here. So, but again, I'd like to turn it over to you. I'll mention that Javad's going to moderate, and Caitlin will help out as well with questions at the end. So please feel free, attendees, to use the chat feature, Q&A feature with your questions as we're going throughout, and we'll moderate that and make sure that we present those to Ahmad. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ahmad, and thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thank you, Rob, and I'm super excited to be here. I am living in Chicago, but a big portion of my heart is from Wisconsin. Oshkosh was my first home when I came over here. I still am a big Packers fan. Not that it matters. I'm just on the wrong side of the border, living over here in the Bear territory with my Packer flag outside and everything. So, okay, I'm going to just start. I'm going to share my screen and let me know if there's an issue in seeing it. Okay. As Rob mentioned, I'm going to be, briefly touching, on the process autonomy, automation in general, and what its impact is on business. We do have several terms in this space, and I'm going to try to do justice in that regard. It's a vast field, and as much as I can, I'll do justice. But it's a continuous learning for all of us, right? Okay. So let me just screen-wise. Let me just minimize you guys. So just from a get-go, automation. If you look at automation in general, we as human race and human beings have been doing automation for a long period of time. Automation is not new for us. In fact, one may say that the moment we got our intelligence, we started looking at things to automate and get away from our hands to something else. From tooling standpoint, in the prehistorical time, and there's a long history in that regard. And then, some things like steam engines, electricity, and things of that nature. But the real automation started with the computers, right? And I'm going to talk about that quickly as well. But from the early ages of computers to data processing, and then there's a whole ERP suite on that regard as well. And then over the last decade or so, we have started seeing some bots, and I'm going to explain what a bot is. But on the physical side, we saw automations as robots and things of that nature. Now we are seeing the same things in our systems, where there is an autonomous thing or machine or a computer program that is running, and that they are acting as if they are doing stuff with magic automatically, but there are programs behind it. In terms of hold on. Sorry. In terms of just automation in the computer era, things started with tabulating systems, right? So there have been tabulating systems at the beginning where you had punch cards trying to do things from that standpoint. But then, then things started with programming, where we had programs that were running things in more prescriptive way. There was commands and there were things like that would do things by itself. But a programmer would prescribe it on what a machine is doing. Now, in the last, again, decade and a half, we are seeing more cognitive systems. And what is a cognitive system? A cognitive system is where an automated system is kind of learning and interacting in more naturally in our human machine space. There is a more of a collaborative thing that is happening between a program, a machine, and a human process. And in that regard, it is becoming more and more pervasive. The machines are becoming more and more pervasive into the more traditional work that human beings used to be doing. And there are forces that have resulted in us getting to this point. Forces like big data, where we have a lot more new data that you can see in the lower right corner that is coming into our hemisphere of programs or computation areas, from a business transactional side, but then there is social, a lot of like a non-structured domains, and then of course in the last a few years we have the explosion of IoT, where digital and physical bridge is being pretty much shattered through sensors, through devices that are sitting over there. Our houses are much more connected to the back end, and then our offices are more connected, and our cars are connected, and at its core, if you look at these things, all of these things are creating data, and then that data then compounds with our technology advancement, which is driven through cloud. And with the cloud computing, you have pretty much endless compute power and storage power at your fingertips. And then the third pillar of this is programming side, which is AI and machine learning, advancing the programming aspect of it, or the instruction to the computer aspect of it, which is now where in essence what is happening is that we are creating programs that have some limited but some ability to evolve by itself without us trying to instruct something into their programming hemisphere, so to speak. It's interesting to recognize how this thing is really changing our workplace. This was a study done in 2018, and I'm going to make some comments after that. But 2018, a study done by World Economic Forum looked at what is the portion of labor, and I'm talking about labor in the work in the more business environment, that is done by machine or bots or computers, and what is the portion that is done by humans, doing it more interactively. And even if just to clarify, if if you are doing data entry in the computer, or you're doing some planning through the computer, that is on the human side, not on the machine side, even if we are using computers to do that. And things are changing from 2018 to 2022, 2025. It is clear that within the next 5 years or so, or that was projected in 2018, that next 5 years or so, most of the work would be done by machine. Now, think about it, that this was done in 2018, and then COVID hit. COVID, if anything, has accelerated the digital transformation. It has actually accelerated a need for moving a lot of workloads to machine and doing a lot of autonomous framework, and things are happening much faster. And so I think, if anything, we are going to see much bigger portion of our work being done by machines. Now I'm going to go into more crux of automation, and there are certain terms that are being used for automation. As an example, in the industry, you would have heard RPA, and RPA is basically robotics process automation. It is we can think of it as an entry point into automation. It's a configuration software that augment or eliminate human action. So as an example, if we have a process, we have a data entry process, we have some approval process, we have some collaboration process where people are interacting manually. That thing can be done through a rule-based engine, through some automation framework automatically. And I'll give some examples later on. Another term that is used in the industry a lot is called bots. And bots are basically, the word bot comes from robot, and bots are basically these softwares that are running on machines, and they are doing things automatically. Most prominent bot is a chatbot, and we all, knowingly or unknowingly, nowadays interact with the chatbot. So if you are on a website, and if there is generally in the right bottom corner, right top corner, ask something. When you're doing that, in most cases, there is a chatbot behind it that is interacting with you. And some chatbots are quite good. Like, for example, some of these COVID-19, educational chatbot, a lot of hospitals have it, a lot of ministries have it, and all of health ministries and health departments, and they now can respond to pretty variety of questions without a need for a human to respond to that. Banks have that as well. Then there is another type of a chatbot which we use all the time, and that's a recommendation engine. When you go to a Netflix, when you go to Amazon, there is a bot behind it that is looking at your patrons and trying to recommend you something. That, again, is an intelligent bot that is running behind to support it. Another terminology that is associated with automation is artificial intelligence and machine learning. And again, artificial intelligence and machine learning is basically around computer instructions which does not require explicit rules, explicit coding. So machine learning, however, required some training data. Based on machine learning training data, it can figure things out, and then it can be given some real scenarios. There are certain terms used with that: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning. And in general, what it means is supervised learning is there is some kind of a supervision framework that is provided for the machine learning to understand things. Unsupervised is that you just give it data, it tries to figure things out. Reinforcement is where you're kind of rewarding machine to do the right thing. One of the most kind of academic example of that is recognizing a photograph for a different species. You just start giving a program a photograph, and then try to have it understand what a cat looked like. And then it initially there would be a lot of false positive, but as you are giving it back some reinforcement, it would become more intelligent. So lastly, and a term that is used over there is the basically combining all of these together, and it's called intelligent automation. It's combining RPA to AI ML and to bot technology, to natural language processing, to machine vision, and then giving a framework to businesses to really, really automate things in a more cohesive way. In terms of, and I wanted to somehow give an impression to how this thing link or work with the humans, right? How automation relate to human beings, and basically, human beings have brains, right? And the brains are, there's a cognitive side, then there's a rule side, which is the right brain and the left brain. So cognitive side, you can think about AI in the machine world. It could be think like AI machine learning. The rule side is more like BPO, BPM, RPA. Then there is a memory aspect of it. This is the content management, data management side. The central nervous system is the integration, coordination, orchestration frameworks, how things would integrate together. Eyes, ears, different senses are data capture, hands and speak is bots, action bots. So that's how kind of trying to reflect how your human to machine, how things can relate between these two worlds. Now, when we look at the current state of business, this is saying future, but it's already happening, right? The current state of businesses, the future of businesses, it is all about collaboration. It's about collaboration between data, technology, processes, and us, the humans, the workers at our business environment. And the key is that all of these need to work together. From a people standpoint, optimizing talent, try to move human workers, so to speak, to go from mundane job to more enhanced job, from like a repetitive job to a more analyst type job, like more higher brain, moving towards from a lower brain activity to higher brain activity. In terms of, again, using the data, we already talked about data, that there is a lot of data, right? We have a lot of data, how that we can then harness it, how can we really use it to benefit our businesses, to benefit our processes, to benefit our lives. And then process-wise, look at the workflow, look at the business processes that we all have, and figure out how we can make that efficient. And then lastly, technology, and technology is basically, in today's world, is enabling a lot of these things. I wanted to show how the continuum works in this regard. Again, augmenting human beings is a continuum. It is something that requires, and in some not academic, some technology side, people tend to believe or tend to say that there is this thing about automation, AI, ML, and everything is going to take away from humans. Now, in some cases, that is true, and it has been throughout the history of humanity that there have been certain things that were done in a certain way, and then machine came and they tried to take away. Like, look at the farming world, right? Which most of us live in that. There used to be people doing farming by hand. Now there are machines doing farming for farmers, right? So yeah, for a small period of time, there was disruption. But over the evolutionary cycles, over the societal cycle, it became a more augmented thing. And then that has really, really helped us evolve, right? So right now we have our if we look at farming example, the production out of the same farm has increased because of use of technology. And the same thing is going to happen or should happen at our workplaces. It needs to go from automation to augmentation, where things are working in much more harmony. I wanted to, also discuss a little bit on type of works, right? At the business environment, we have several type of works that we all do. Our businesses do that. And, there's a repetitive work, there's administrative work, there's things like rule-based, which is like, okay, giving payments or, management of a supplier, procurement, all that, which is a little bit, HR is a rule-based work. Expert work, where we are trying to do things, imagine things, plan things. And then there's a cross-enterprise work where, cross-enterprise things happen in much more collaborative way. Now, each of these things have an aspect of automation, which can change these kind of a groupings of work and processes. In the repetitive side, repetitive is quite simple, right? Repetitive work is actually the easiest work to automate. As an example, some of these RPA tools, they're pretty good in things like copy paste, click functions, screen, scraping, check in, check out. You're doing basket check-ins, things like that, basic record keeping. They're pretty good in doing it. These tasks are pretty much easily replaceable, so that there is a portion of replacement that can happen in this space. Then an administrative task is which are more data rich, right? These are, there is a lot of documentation associated with. So there is a content management aspect over there that can support the administrative tasks. Basic rule-based like HR, claim processing, expense approval processing. These are rule-based, right? Very rule-oriented. So a generic RPA can handle this. Expert work is where AI, is enabling a lot of automation. Your bots are playing a key role over there. Your personalization bots are playing key role over there. Your customer support is becoming much more cross-channel, so to speak. Lastly, with the cross enterprise required a lot of integration. So if we take this, if we go back to that, human caricature that I shared, you can look at integration as more of a spinal cord type thing, where there is cross enterprise, where there requires a lot of integration. So there is a lot of integration that needs to happen between different things, and some of the business processes that are directly associated with that is like customer onboarding. Generally, it's not one function that is involved in that. New product introduction, there is not one function that is involved. You need engineers, you need product management, you need product support, you need finance for pricing and and the costing side of it. Then you need sales and marketing, right? All of these things, these departments need to work together, and that's where integration and workflows become a key enabler for automation. I wanted to share some examples as well. It is, there are certain businesses that are on the forefront of automation, and then there are certain businesses that are behind. So I just wanted to give a few examples. Financial services, as is absolutely leading automation. We all see, at least we may see it, we may not see it, or we all are recipient of it, because when we are doing banking, a lot of our banking behind the scene is automated. The personal banking is much more automated now than it used to be. Actually, things like loan approval, loan management, fraud detection, all of these things, there is a significant automation that is supporting these processes. Auto trading, as an example, a lot of trading that happens on the Wall Street, a big majority of that is human free, and there's no trader that is there's a bot that is doing a lot of trading. Then another area that is quite good in automation is customer services. And again, that can transcend businesses. Some business have high customer touch points, some business has low customer touch point, but every business have an internal customer. So as an example, HR operations in a lot of companies are embracing automation. They have HR bots, they have employee onboarding that is quite automated. Employee reviews are at least enabled a little bit of automation. Call center is much more automated now. there is a lot of bad feelings about automation, especially in the customer services side when it comes to call center, because of, I think, again, this is where business processes and technology need to look at each other. I think that the business processes and cost-cutting measures, all of those things jumped much quicker on quote-unquote automation before the automation was ready. And they implemented a very scripted rule engines, not intelligent workflows, to handle your request to the call center. And that's where, when you're talking to a machine, so to speak, or when you're interacting with the machine, or at least in the last 5-10 years ago, there were much more waiting to go to an agent. Things have improved dramatically. As an example, again, for the COVID-19 side, there are certain, companies and, health organizations that have really embraced the bot technology and to enhance experience that people have for scheduling and things of like that. States and cities and counties that have invested in it, you can see the experience, and there are certain that hasn't, and you can see the experience where scheduling for COVID-19 vaccine is a nightmare, right? So, but technology can enable it. People are not ready to invest in it. Lastly, I wanted to give an example of back office operation, which again, every business have a back office, every large business, small business, like procurement, HR, finance, inventory management, for manufacturing, inventory management and others. All of these traditionally have a lot of rules, a lot of repeatable processes. Time for automation, right? You can start with simple automation to go into advanced automation. Procurement process is a nightmare everywhere, right? As external vendors, when we are going and talking to companies, it's a nightmare. But it's document heavy. There's a lot of documentation over there. We have technology to enable it, to expand it. It's just a matter of effectively implementing it. And that leads to, where do companies stand? This is a survey that was done, again, it's a little bit dated, 2017 by APQC, where they wanted to figure out where are automations, like, companies in terms of automation. You can see that most of them are on the left side. Very few are on the right side of this chart, so to speak. The 12% haven't even embarked on process automation. The about 19%, they intend to, but they haven't done it. About 27% are early adopter, 24% are piloting. There are some that are reviewing results. Just 20-25% is where they're executing effectively. Now, things have changed. There are more that are doing this, but it's also important to understand what are the top drivers that most companies are looking at when they're looking at automation. Biggest driver is cost saving. They look at automation same as outsourcing. A lot of companies are looking at automation same as outsourcing. Where, okay, I've got a workforce that is expensive. How do I move some of the processes to a cheaper workforce or free workforce in this example, quote unquote automation? Reduction of errors is another key thing. If you have a process that is automated, that unless there is a drift, there's generally not a lot of errors. Human beings are prone towards error, right? We make mistakes, which is actually, our mistakes have made us evolve. So mistakes are not a bad thing, but in a process, it does create, some churn. Then 34% are looking at competitive advantage, 33% are actually looking at as a reallocation of employees from lower, kind of a mental capacity type operation to a higher mental capacity type operation. 30 to 32% are looking at simplification. About 28% are looking at automation for customer experience. Okay, from a path forward, from where or how we can start, right? How we can enable automation. It looks, we need to look at automation in as a journey. And I wanted to share a few steps. Again, looking at things, okay, I want to automate something. What do I do? Look at that, try to figure out what is the outcome that you're trying to create through the automation framework. We need to identify what are the decision factors, because decision factors and rules are implemented in the automation. Also, decision factors, are required to see if the automation framework is successful or it's not successful. Most automation nowadays are AI and machine learning based. So which means, you need to understand, you need to have some kind of a training set provided for automation. I wanted to also discuss a little bit of, and I'm going to talk about bias a little bit later as well, but any automation, because we are implementing things that are going to do things by themselves, we have to deliberately understand, is there a bias? Either, because of the existing process, human beings, can introduce a bias, or machine can reduce a bias because of the training data. So understanding the bias. Then user experience is another key aspect, because, again, automated machine, automated framework need to be interacting with other humans. So what is that experience that we are giving them? Developing logic, implement mindfully, is critical, which we talked about it in terms of augmentation. If we are implementing something that disrupt, as an example, that's going to disrupt your workforce, what are you doing with that workforce? So that's where the mindfulness comes. And then lastly, monitoring and measuring is key. Monitoring and measuring can go back to the bias. It can, then go back to the, desired outcome. I'm almost done. I just wanted to share a little bit about some key, and again, this is not, there's no association with IBM in this regard. I wanted to just share some key players in that is more on the RPA side. On the machine learning AI side, there's a plethora of stuff. There is no single, kind of a player, so to speak. But in RPA there are, and all of these players are actually embracing intelligent automation pretty aggressively. So the three that are on the top consistently have been UiPath, Blue Prism, and Automation Anywhere. Each of them have their success, their strength. Each of them have their areas for improvement. As an example, UiPath is one of the most, I would say, kind of a, you can say of it as a market leader. Automation Anywhere is close by as well, but UiPath has gone from a niche player to a market leader in about 3 to 4 years, and it has a lot of appeal. And one of the appeal that UiPath has is its simplicity. It has a very simple, kind of a drag and drop type framework where people can do stuff. Automation Anywhere is a little bit more traditional. It does have user-friendly availability. It's more on a lot of finance, HR, sales, manufacturing type operations have looked at that. Some of the key features are PDF integration, email automation, and then some bots they provide. And Blue Prism is another one that is that exists. Again, it's been a leader for some time, and you could try to provide similar frameworks as the other two. I want to end my discussion with this. It is important, and in my mind, it is critical for us to look at automation, but then look at certain things with that. And one of them is bias, the other one is quality, drift, and explainability. And why it is important is because if we look at an automated process, and if that automated process is biased, then you're like an example. There are things with which you may have heard or read through the news that that loan approval process is tilted towards something, some demographic, some racial whatever. So they are tilted towards that. The face recognition frameworks or bots are tilted towards a bias. Then any automated framework has a tendency of drift. Once it's in the production, things would change, and it is going to go either because the training data wasn't good enough, or compared to the live data, or live data has changed. So there is going to be a drift. So if you are not looking at that on a continuous basis, your result in the beginning would start to deviate from the result what you are seeing right now. And explainability is critical as well because of regulatory reasons, because of the company's goodwill, and all of those things that, if somebody comes and say, hey, I got this, why? Companies need to have an ability to explain. And that's where explainability plays a role. I think I am at the end of my presentation, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to stop sharing and so that I can show my face. But if there is anything that you guys want to ask, I don't know if you've been I haven't seen anything from a Q&A because I've been presenting, but if there are any questions or any comments, feel free to share. I can try to address that.
So I will take over from Rob at this time as a moderator, but thank you so much, Ahmad, for a very insightful discussion and topic. It's very, very relevant. And for everyone who's wondering, yes, Ahmad Shahzad and Javad Ahmad are related. He is my cousin, and I'm very, very much informed about what he does. And so really, if you have any specific questions in reference to AI, machine learning, RPA, he is a very authentic source on all of them. And I forewarn him, don't embarrass me, and I don't think he has. But by all means, please put any questions in the Q&A side. But just to kick it off, Ahmad, what I wanted to, I think, you and I, we've talked about the bias in the past and the necessity for any implementation that we do to be able to continuously learn and to make sure that we provide quality data to ensure that is continuously evolving. Because often, as the implementers and with a project mindset that we bring to our IT deployments, we look at as a begin and an end. And when the end achieves, then we celebrate and we move on. And then, before we realize, the intended results are not there, and then we deem the project as a failure. So I think, I know you have touched upon that, but how do you advise, based on your experiences as an organization that goes into, picking up one of these initiatives to start looking into, and your dials start to go more towards the right, And as I think it is going to be one of those things, just like nobody questions, should I put an email in my business? I think in about 5 to 8 years, RPA and automation is just going to be one of those natural things that's just going to happen. It's going to be part of everything that we do. So how do you, talk to us a little bit about how do you propose getting started? Typically we have been involved in many of the very conventional, traditional automation processes, like as you talked about, putting in an invoice related OCR processing for data capture, and then rule-based processing to see how the workflows are going to be. But how do you, so that people do understand very clearly, and even when you touched on the processing that is going on between cross-functional. So you talked about onboarding a customer, releasing a product. People do understand the workflow nature of that. How do you look at it from the system? As I think you and I, we were just talking before, there's like hyper automation, as Gartner's talking about, as to how do you look at an organizational set and not get so bogged down with one process? Because we traditionally have looked at, let's identify a candidate process and work with that. Whereas then we have created blind spots for us to not look at it in an organization. So just talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And during my long speech, I've had some questions. So while you're answering that, I'll repeat those questions.
Yeah, and in terms of embarrassment, we still have time. So I think so you talked about several things, right? So I'm going to try to get my put my thinking hat on that. In terms of how do you start? In my mind, you do start with something simple. If the organization has truly not looked at automation, or they haven't embraced automation, at least intelligently, and I'm using the word intelligently deliberately over here, because we may have implemented something that has automation over there, which we don't know. So from an organization standpoint, if we are looking at automation more deliberately, it does make sense to nibble into things that are low-hanging fruit. It does make sense to experiment, to understand, like have the workforce understand some of those things. Okay, what are the art of possibilities? Can we get some quick success? Can we do certain things? And that's where, the external customer touch points play a role. A lot of people are looking at bots as starting points because, that is in a way low-hanging fruit. I have a process which is, helping things out. I know I have a rich data set around all of my logs of all of my calls that have happened with that. Can I look at that in a contained way? And it's not cross-functional, it's limited to a certain area. But that said, the challenge comes when you have succeeded. And that is where the hyper automation plays a role. The challenge does come that when you have successfully implemented a bot or something, and now your company is extremely excited about it, and then everybody tries to do things by themselves. That is where things like strategy, that is where things like understanding the being mindful plays a role. And it is every company is different, so it's not like, okay, there is a generic answer to the problem, but there is a generic answer to a problem, and that is strategy. So and there is, again, you don't have to go in and get a strategic consultant to do that. There is publications, there is a lot of material available. Somebody needs to go in and invest time, and that's, but there are strategies around it on how you can, be on a journey of automation, create automation center of excellence, and as any other technology enhancement that we have seen in the past, right? You have a center of excellence, you have certain leaders who embrace it, who see the value of it, and then go from step by step and go into more of a, which Gartner called hyper intelligence, which I use, intelligent automation.
Thank you. So first of all, I don't know what you have against consultants. I need to earn.
I'm a consultant.
But anyways, I think so. In essence, the idea of have a what you described in one of your slides as well, is to have a focus on what is your outcome that you're trying to go after, strategize, but do find a candidate process to kind of pilot it. That's what the summary. And I think Amanda has a question similar to that. So maybe you have answered some of that, but I will read it out to you anyways. She says, I work as part of a people resources team. We are wanting to start using RPA and bots to try and shift our workload to more strategic tasks instead of tactical work, but we don't really know where to start. So the same typical question, we know we want it, but where to start? What would you recommend for first step in automating our team's workload?
Yeah, I think, and that's where I'm going to say, maybe higher Jawad, but no, in all honesty, I'm guessing it's like an HR type operation. That's what I'm guessing. But in all honesty, HR, human resource, is going through this transformation across all countries. We are talking, at least and as an IBM, we are talking to several companies in their HR automation journey, HR, next generation HR, some people call HR 2.0, HR 3.0. How they can really, really enhance it. And again, it is all about, try to get some external help in that regard. If you don't have ability to internally figure things out, external help is available to get some, kind of a individual or group that can tell you how other companies have done it. Because again, without understanding the domain and which type of an organization it is a little bit challenging. But regardless, there are best practices in this space. There are things that that can be a quick wins. Where what I've seen is ask an HR type thing is a much, we in IBM actually internally have implemented it, that we have a bot that we talk to get simple answers. Vacation, how much is that? All those things. So I don't need to call a help desk or somebody from healthcare HR person to do it. My healthcare questions, all of those things now are automated for us, at least in IBM internally. And that's, I think probably one of the easiest, or not easiest, but one of the starting point is, can you provide some kind of help framework for your employees? Because a lot of HR department is at least, trying to do that on a daily basis. By doing that, then you are, trying to then have your own team focusing on, retentions, more, how do I get more, how do I retain people? How do I get more, people in my company and all that? So higher intelligent power is implemented.
So there's already, I know that in your quadrant, the Gartner quadrant that you showed, that thing I noticed it was from 2019, because the one I had was from 2020, and it did say Microsoft as one of the challengers coming up as a visionary. Because so I don't know, not knowing exactly, again, as you said, what the domain is, or what type of technology stack that they currently have, but I just wanted to highlight Microsoft as a focus on Microsoft 365 and with Teams and what they are trying to do with that. And then others that are in the same space, they're heavily focused on building those types of automation within the general collaboration of the workplace. And I think just there's, again, some of these departments are ready in the sense of HR or customer service and everything, because there's already a lot of content that is available. It's fairly, there's a lot of activities, like, as you say, vacation approval, FAQs, there's health questions, there's mundane tasks that are there if I just want to relocate. And these things are very typical candidate processes that are being utilized as automation, right? So those, and again, as I said, there's a lot of these things, low code type of development platforms that are coming inside of these frameworks that are basically allowing and empowering respective departments to, to start to do, as long as there's a firm back-end strategy to be able to do a lot of this work on a continuous basis. So we have another comment and a statement, comment and a question from Vijay. He said that I've been an RPA developer since 2 years, working mostly with UiPath, recently moved to Python. And then he says, can you please suggest where to move if I need to upgrade myself according to an ongoing business standards? So I think he's trying to, I'm assuming the question is more around the technology. And then he does say that what technology would be best for document processing with UiPath, just introducing document understanding. So I think they're like.
So I think, but personally, again, from an individual standpoint who's trying to learn these things, that's one side of the problem, right? So which is what Vijay is talking about in terms of, okay, how can I educate myself, tool myself to become a much more better practitioner, right? My personal take is that it is more important to understand the framework, understand how to solve a business problem, than to understand a tool. That's, again, my experience is that tool is going to come and go. Right now UiPath is high. Python is the language that everybody loves. In 5 years, there's going to be a totally different technology that we'll be trying to figure out and scratching our head to figure out what that thing is. If somebody is trying to really, really educate themselves, it is much more important that we understand what is an HR process, how, like an example, a business work, and then how can things improve that, whatever the technology frameworks are, improve that. Last thing is which tool I use to improve that, because each tool has strength and each tool has areas of gap. And actually, very early when I used to work for Caterpillar, and I'm working on technology side, so I have opinions about Microsoft, IBM, which I tend to not go into in any of these discussions. But when I used to be on a receiving side of it, I used to use this thing about, okay, I used to use, that everything is like this. On 1 year, you have one thing that is ahead. On the next year, you have another thing that is on ahead. People try to catch each other very quickly. So chasing the leader is not probably the best thing that you can do. Understanding business, understanding problem, trying to solve the problem probably is better. In terms of document, again, there is a lot of document OCR type technologies that are available. Dependent on, is it a free text OCR? Is it a PDF? Is it an email? There are certain technologies that you can able to use. I'm not going to share, again, I tend not to share my opinions on certain technologies in these discussions, because these are not, I tend not to do that.
Well, thank you so much. I think we are at the end of our allotted time. This conversation can go on, and I think between Ahmad and I, it will. But nonetheless, I will pass it back to Rob to kind of bring us home.
Sure.
Thank you, Ahmad.
Thanks, Shahzad, and thanks, Ahmad, for a great presentation and some very thought-provoking information, I think, for everybody. And it's really kind of where things are headed. So we appreciate you being with us today all the way from Chicago, and sure we'll see you again at some future events. I just want to thank again our sponsor, quickly. Platinum, Oshkosh Corp, Smart IS, and the Oshkosh Area School District. Gold, Fox Valley Tech, Bank First, Stellar Blue Technologies, Sadoff E-Recycling, and Arctic Wolf Networks. And then silver, Change Management, Whipley, and Horicon Bank. And just remind everybody that on Thursday, April 22nd at 8 a.m., we have Dr. Betsy Winga from Advocate Aurora Health. She'll be talking to us about digital transformation in healthcare for our Amplify Coffee Clutch that morning from 8 to 9 a.m. So mark that on your calendars. Other than that, I'd like to thanks again and appreciate everybody attending and hope to see you soon.